John, who is with us on the meeting? Anybody?
Nobody.
Right. When we do the public hearing, I believe 1930 crickets, right?
I'll let you know.
Likely. All right. I'm hearing any announcements. Does the managers have anything at this point? I'd like to move to approve the agenda. Do I have a second? Second. Been moved and seconded. Aye. Right. Agenda is approved. Public forum. Anybody wishing to speak? We have no one. Everyone showed up. Thank you. So let's move on to the consent calendar. Does anybody have any items on the consent calendar that they would like to pull? John? No? No. Okay, not hearing any. I would like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar. But it's been moved and seconded. Aye. Aye. The consent calendar is approved. All right, thank you very much. This is going very well. All right. Now, it's a partners, administrators, engineers. We will immediately go to. Right. Perfect. Carry on, sir.
All right, this is related to the watershed management plan update. If you recall, over the summer, we had a discussion to prioritize generally issue topics at high, medium, and low priority. Having done that, we're moving into establishing goals, after which we'll flesh out the implementation program to achieve those goals. The goals are organized by the issue topics, and because there's a lot of content here, this memo just presents draft goals for the highest priority issue areas.
So I just wanted to add that looked like an inverted Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay. But it's
I know what you're talking about.
right.
I'm glad that I caught it.
Okay.
We can, there are multiple graphic options to present this information, so please let me know if you guys prefer something else. The highest priority issues are surface water quality and the grouping of water quantity, flood risk, and climate resiliency. In the document, I have included issue statements. The issue statements are meant to very briefly characterize the issue. They are not going to be, let me say, they will be supported with a not exhaustive, but more detailed narrative to more fully characterize the issue. But for example, here, the issue number one is that nutrient and sediment loading and stormwater runoff negatively impacts the surface water quality and aquatic ecosystems. That issue statement is intended to briefly characterize the issue resulting from untreated stormwater runoff takes its way to ponds, wetland streams, and downstream. If treatment's inadequate, you get algal blooms or sedimentation, things like that. There's a whole host of problems or potential impacts to ecosystems, things like that. But the issue statement itself is intended to just very briefly characterize that.
Okay.
Associated with that issue statement, there are 3 goals. It's a backup that Bowser would love for all of these goals to be very measurable. In practice, I think there's a balance between the measurability of goals and their usefulness to drive the plan implementation program. But oftentimes, where goals can be measurable is through either the number of actions that can be taken or the results of those actions, whether it's like a sediment load reduction or a phosphorus load reduction.
I have a question, sir. Okay, as an example, goal 1B, reduce phosphorus and sediment load. Okay.
Yep.
So when we flesh that out, this is what we're going to do. And we essentially have a list of things that we're going to implement. In other words, regarding the goal, which is okay, we're going to put money aside, or we're going to go out our way to measure things, that sort of thing. We're doing it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And is kind of where I was going with this, that even though some of these goals aren't strictly measurable in that there's not a number in the goal statement, the idea is that each one of these goals will be linked to implementation activities that are measurable. And so, for example, where it says reduce phosphorus, in goal 1B, reduce phosphorus and sediment loading, Valley Branch Watershed District water bodies to meet state standards through capital projects focusing on high priority water bodies. And so that's a goal where there is not a numeric value included in that goal because we don't know exactly what that load reduction is required in order to meet those water quality standards. We know that for some water bodies, they're closer to meeting standards than others. So even though that goal is not explicitly measurable in the goal statement, any project that Valley Branch implements is going to have an associated load reduction that you would be keeping track of as part of the annual reporting. So when it comes to tracking progress relative to this goal, you could say in the Goose Lake watershed, we did projects A, B, and C, resulting in a 24-pound per year reduction of phosphorus loading. There's a number associated with that. You measure your progress towards that goal because you know whether or not you're meeting the standard, how much load you've reduced. But the number isn't in gold right now. We don't know exactly what that number needs to be.
Exactly.
So
I was going to ask a question about that, but basically, we don't have anything written down here. I just can talk because we're not exactly sure what we're going for. You know, a pound, 2,000 pounds, whatever that phosphorus reduction might be. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where that's a little bit more explicit is, because you have more of a track record with this, is if we jump ahead to goal 4B, that's specifically related to degraded. The issue is that degraded sections of stream banks, shorelines, and riparian areas contribute to excessive pollutant loading and negatively impact water quality, habitat, and aquatic ecology. So, whereas the first issue statement was primarily focusing on untreated stormwater runoff, this issue is talking specifically about degraded stream bank areas. As an organization, you've implemented several projects to restore sections of stream banks, and you have pollutant reductions associated with those projects. And so that's something where I think, and it's noted here in red parentheses, I do think it makes sense in this goal to include an estimate of, what length of shoreline you expect to be able to restore over the life of the 10-year plan, or what good load reduction from that might be, based on kind of the track record of, what have you done in the last 10 years, and I know it's a function of willing landowners and things like that. But
right. That seems kind of tough because
it is,
yeah, we don't know exactly what we're going to encounter. And I don't know if we have accurate records of that linear number, how many feet of shoreline we've taken care of. I don't know where we're at there.
sure. And also, these are goals. They are targets. Don't get penalized or fined if you don't meet them. It's just
That's good. No,
it's good to have something to shoot for. And this push is coming from Bowser because they want to have something that they can take back to the state legislature when they say, hey, we've paid out however many tens of millions of dollars in this clean water fund and competitive grants, things like that. What have we gotten for it?
so you do want to numbers count? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, but if we get a grant, we'll have those numbers to feed back to them. It's just can't really crystal ball it too well in a 10-year plan.
That's right. On a case by case basis, part of that work planning for any given grant or any project is going to include an estimate. And so that's why, like going back to that goal 1B, where the goal was to reduce phosphorus and sediment loading through capital projects. Yeah, each one of those capital projects is going to carry an estimated load reduction with it. You'll be able to track that even though it's not necessarily in the goal statement. So that's why it's going to be especially important to link the implementation program to the goals. So as you go through annual reporting, when you're updating your implementation table and your accomplishments from the past year, you can say, oh, these 3 activities made progress towards goal 1B. And then that's part of the the difference between this plan and the last plan is that Bowser has updated its rules so that you have it's a biennial assessment of progress towards your plan goals. So every 2 years, they're going to be asking for, have you made progress towards your goals? And you'd say, yeah, we did these 3 projects resulting in 100 pound per year reduction of phosphorus loading.
Is it too ambitious to have a goal that is stated it to have impaired waters not be impaired anymore?
No, you can do that if you want to. So I'm going to jump ahead to issue 3.
Yeah.
Yep. And so that issue is that this is specifically talking about impaired waters, issue being that several water bodies in the EWD are threatened or impaired for uses, including recreation, aquatic life, and aquatic consumption, due to pollutants such as phosphorus, sediment, bacteria, and other stressors. And then the goal, now you're right, the goal statement could be to remove a water body A, B, or C from the impaired waters list. The goal could be to remove all impaired water bodies from the impaired waters list. Some organizations have done that. I think a more reasonable goal is to make progress towards water quality standards, because there are some factors that are outside of your abilities. I know, trying to remember which, I think it's Lake McDonald is the one that's very close to the standard. It could be reasonable to add a goal in here that to achieve state standards in Lake McDonald. But I think by saying make progress towards, and so there's 2 goals here. One is to at least maintain or improve water quality in non-impaired water bodies. And then the other one is to make progress towards state standards for those that are impaired. So if you can get Lake McDonald off the impaired waters list, great, you've met that goal. Or like you've achieved this goal and also got Lake McDonald off the list. Whereas if you set the goal as get Lake McDonald off the list, you may make progress towards the standard while still not achieving the goal. And again, that you're still measuring progress towards it, you just might not achieve the goal. Organizations have done it different ways.
Time, Greg. Yeah, speeding off Manager Armstrong's question, goal 1B, is that maybe too strong of a statement, or do you think it's fine, or should it be changed a little bit to make progress toward meeting state standards? If there's a water body that is maybe impossible, like St. Croix?
That's a good point. So that it doesn't sound like it's so lofty.
Or do you think, what's your opinion as stated with goal 1B?
I would say that the to meet state standards should either be towards meeting state standards or could be stricken altogether. You could just go, because meeting state standards is covered in goals 3. So the goal could just be to reduce phosphorus and sediment loading Valley Branch Watershed District water bodies through capital projects focusing on high priority water bodies. So the goal would be to reduce phosphorus loading to priority water bodies. And then I think goal 3 also covers the impairment and the state standards. So I guess my recommendation would be to just cut the state standard reference.
Okay. And also, everything that we're doing here is generalized, correct? Nothing is so specific that kind of, I don't want to say it sets us up for failure, but it puts us in a position where we're under pressure to achieve something.
That's kind of the idea.
Is it?
Part of this is to balance specificity with flexibility.
Okay.
The idea is that the specific activities that you might include in your annual work planning and in your implementation program will support these goals, but the idea is that many different specific opportunities would support these goals, because you may not know right now which project or which water body is going to have the opportunity for. And this doesn't even goal 1B just includes focusing on high priority water bodies, but doesn't even specify which sub watershed you're going to do the project in. Specifically because we understand that some of those projects are going to be opportunity based. And it may happen that you've got an opportunity in East Lake before you have an opportunity in the Lake McDonald watershed. So having the flexibility where you're still reducing pollutant load into your priority water bodies, but it doesn't prohibit you from doing this project first and that project second.
Okay.
And there will also be kind of a one-to-many correlation of multiple activities in your implementation table will probably all tie back to the same. And in some cases, multiple goals. The chloride goals, which is issue 2 and goals 2A through 2F, those are a little bit more specific, and some of them kind of straddle the line between, it's semantics. They were kind of parsing between like what's a goal, what's an objective, what's an action. Some of the ones for the chloride are a little bit more specific. So like understanding the existing road and facility chloride management practices of cities and townships within the BBWP. That's a pretty narrow goal that I think you guys could easily achieve in the first couple of years of plan development. And so I think it's good to set pacing goals that you can achieve. Whereas, if the goal were reduce the amount of chloride loading from cities from cities and townships, understanding what they're doing, what the loading is, that might be an action that supports that larger goal. But if you just have a goal of reduced chloride loading from cities and townships, you may not have an adequate direction on how to get there.
So this is written, and then we essentially have bullet points to follow particular game planning, how we're going to go about it, whether it's education. We are going to go speak to so-and-so, or we're going to send the engineer, do this, or we're going to engage in testing in certain places, that sort of thing. What happens there?
Yeah, so maybe not in the format of bullet points, but yes, what you described is that the different programs that Valley Branch implements will drive some of these goals. For example, this goal 1B, where that's specifically focused on reducing sediment and phosphorus loading through capital projects. So your capital improvement program very much linked to that goal. The understanding the existing road facility chloride management practices, that's very much a collaboration and education goal, where it's the engineers going to go meet with the cities to find out what's going on. Some of the other goals will be a combination of education, and maybe it's education combined with the small scale grant program that's going to achieve those goals. And so each of the the different types of programs, whether it's AIS management, capital projects, and education program, different practices will address different goals and through different ways. And that's all going to be linked up in that implementation program. So you might have a line item in the implementation program that's specifically, having like an annual meeting with your cities and townships to talk about chloride use over the past year. How was the winter? How did people do? What practices worked? What were not consequential, and that sort of thing. That might be a one-time thing. That might be a recurring thing, but that actions can be identified in the implementation program, and that links back to this goal. So you put these goals and say, "Oh yeah, we're doing that." I don't know if people do have comments about the specific goals. I'm happy to jump to those. Otherwise, I can through it.
Just walk through it. Anything jumps out at us. Also, I've been taking notes and trying to flesh this thing out as I would add bullet points. Again, that's just a generalization, so that I can understand how we're getting to where we're going. And John made that one point about certain words that we would use that might generalize or do some sort of liability about, what we want to do. Like that's not the phosphorus. And we don't do that.
And what you describe actually in terms of an iterative process is perhaps a good way to step into designing the implementation program is by taking each one of these goals and kind of listing underneath like action 1, action 2, action 3. And that's a good way to confirm that, you know, you actually have steps identified to address each one of these so no one get lost. And that you aren't also doing things that just aren't necessarily relevant to your priorities. I don't think there's a lot of risk in that, but you know, it's always nice to be able to say, here's, if somebody asks you, you can say, here's why we're doing this. So goal 1A is to limit nutrient and sediment loading in stormwater runoff, aggressive standards for developers and redevelopment, for development and redevelopment. So that again is very much referencing your rules and your permitting program as a means to reduce pollutant loading, or limit pollutant loading. And that this is a key one where the idea is to limit versus reduce, because Hauser's made the argument in the past that, you know, performance standards don't necessarily reduce pollutant loading, but they reduce it below what it may have been if developers didn't have to meet standards. So it's kind of limit is a
Sure. Comment. I just wonder if the term aggressive, if appropriate, might not be a better word there. I mean, we get kind of looked at as we're raising the cost for housing, you know, by, you know, PMPs and that sort of thing. And, I mean, I think our standards are appropriate. But I just, does anybody else think would that be a more appropriate space?
Yeah, again, because of the nature of the stuff, some words are certainly going to evoke emotion or something.
Yeah.
And, you know, you say things, sometimes I say things, oh, we look the hammer on him, and everybody, what's he doing, you know? So, yeah, I agree with him. If we could use more, certainly in everybody's mind, more benign words, that's an idea. Or certainly introduce some ambiguity.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll help. Not create something pointed or pressure on somebody who's implementing this or looking at this.
I don't think not that anybody outside is going to read this.
I think Elmo's going to be like, shouldn't you change it to redundant and overly burdensome?
Yeah, exactly.
The districts that do have more specificity and say something like this water body off the list. What are the consequences of that? Then
There's no consequence. It's just, you know, vouchers, or they're going to look at their plan through the biennial assessment and say, okay, we haven't gotten this water body off the water body list, but what have we done that made progress towards that? I mean, it's the same thing where, like, if that goal is going to be supported by specific actions. And the specific action might be that, hey, we want to do, you know, water quality treatment projects to treat previously untreated stormwater in the Goose Lake watershed, for example, right? And, you know, you're 5 years into your plan and you look and like, well, we haven't had an opportunity. You know, we had these 3 spots and, you know, we either didn't get a grant or the landowner wasn't cooperative or things like that. And you could point to why things weren't done, or you did 2 of those projects and you still didn't achieve the water quality standards because, you know, it takes time for those ecological systems to respond. Even if you do, I mean, cyclamen out
We get
treatment,
that.
it's going to take a little bit of time.
What we're demonstrating is that we're not just sitting here, you know, managing from afar, so to speak. We are being proactive about what we need to do. Bowser sets those standards, right? And there's other LGUs, and of course, it goes all the way to the top. That and it needs to be, in my opinion, that we are all being scrutinized about what we're doing. You know, if we're wasting taxpayer money, or if we're not doing anything at all, or something. You know, that's why we're, you know, capital projects, infrastructure repair, some of the things I've talked about in the past, where, okay, let's see, what should we get our hands on? Everything. And the 10-year plan is helping us focus on a variety of things.
And that's where the rubber meets the road is with the actions that are aligned with the goal. Because if you don't have actions aligned with the goal, then it doesn't matter whether the goal is to reduce the the concentration towards the standards or get the water body off the lifts. Haven't done either. If the point steps you've taken, even if the water body hasn't responded the way you thought it would, that's preferable to being like, well, we haven't achieved this and don't apply.
Very good. I just want to jump over very quickly to goal 3B. Make progress towards achieving eutrophication water quality standard. I misunderstood that as we want to create eutrophication. We're not doing that.
No. We can tweak the language to try and be more clear, but and it is complicated because, like, for SECI depth, you want to be above the standard, and for phosphorus and chloride and chlorophyll, you want to be below the standard. So it's tough to use language like increasing or decreasing. We can maybe say like better than versus achieving, but the idea is that you'd be meeting those standards.
Okay.
And this is specifically linked to eutrophication because we don't want. It's unlikely that you're going to be able to do much to address the PFAS impairments or mercury impairments, or even makes meaningful progress towards any fluoride impairments that might occur. Like, nothing's impaired with fluoride yet in the watershed. So it's really focusing on the eutrophication piece, which is what your water quality projects have typically focused on. And this is different than the and this is again looking. There are other goals related to the creeks and streams, understanding that sediment and biotic factors and bacteria are relevant to those.
Right, these sources of bacteria.
Again, that's a very conscious decision to not have it linked to achieving the bacteria standard, but reduce your sources, because bacteria is one of those things that, but there are multiple environmental factors in addition to things like failing septic and anthropogenic sources that you may not be able to control. So it's also very difficult.
Okay, so that's a generalization. Certainly, I was going to ask about that one too. Sources of pathogenic might be harsh. Word, I don't know. Certain bacteria, maybe just if you guys think that's fine. Just sources of bacteria, and then we're making the assumption that they're harmful.
And definitely measure progress towards that. If it's like, hey, we removed 4 septic systems from the Afton or the Kells Creek sub-watershed. Those are sources that have been reduced. But you're not saying we reduced, 12 million colony forming units of bacteria. Like those are numbers that you can't have any. And then goal 3D is to identify trend. While we're on goal 3 here, it's to identify trends in surface water quality data to assess the impact of your programs and actions on those priority water bodies. So that's a goal related to self-assessment. This again is one of those things that you could theoretically, goal 3D could be an action rather than its own goal. It could be an action that supports achieving your other goals. It's how you measure progress towards them. But because you spend so much of your a significant amount of budget and focus on monitoring, I felt like it made sense to include it as a goal. That
Okay.
It's not just so that you can achieve this other stuff. It's to understand how you're getting there. And then there's a cross-reference to goals 1A, 1B, and 1C because there is quite a bit of overlap between achieving those standards and reducing loading stormwater runoff. Issue 2 is related to chloride. It's like chloride look, and again, the issue statement is intended to be rather broad, but chloride loading degrades the quality of surface water and groundwater and threatens aquatic ecosystems. It doesn't speak to the sources of chloride, it just leaves it kind of general. The goals are primarily focused on understanding and taking steps to support other entities versus like in situ remediation. So goal 2A is to understand the condition of your priority water bodies relative to chloride pollution and potential sources. That's something that you guys discussed at the workshop. So, goal 2B is to understand the existing road and facility chloride management strategies or practices, cities and townships, focused on understanding the sources. Goal 2C is to coordinate with the planners of cities and townships within BDWD.
Is that planner specifically, or can we generalize on that? That seems kind of nitpicky.
Sure.
With appropriate government personnel, authorities, whatever.
We can call it planners / staff. It's more inclusive.
Yeah.
And because this one is specifically related to lowering chloride use through design and local ordinance to support smart soil design. Goal 2B is also a cooperative goal. It's to financially support the actions of partners, including MS4 operators and owners of large impervious areas, to reduce chloride loading through grants or cost share. We heard about at the workshop, we heard about a little bit about how some of the other watersheds are affecting that. Goal 2E is to audit sites with large areas of pavement to determine whether chloride management practices are warranted, and work with pavement owners via education and possible financial support to implement better practices.
I like that, possibly, yes.
And goal F is to support legislation to provide limited liability protection to commercial salt applicators who are certified through an established salt applicator certification program and follow those best practices. We talked about issue 3.
Right.
Issue 4 is specifically related to streams. It's degraded sections of stream bank, shoreline, and riparian areas contribute to excessive pollutant loading and negatively impact water quality, habitat, and aquatic ecology. Again, the first goal here is aimed at understanding the problem. So to understand the condition of stream banks and upgrading ravines along priority streams. B is implementing capital projects, restore and improve degraded shoreline sections along priority streams and ravines tributary to priority streams.
And just a curiosity here, implement capital projects to restore and improve the shoreline section. How do we go about that? Do we look for them? Or we wait something, again, this is about relating to being proactive. Is this something that we wait for something to happen? Or do we monitor hunting, so to speak, or looking at something? Does that make any sense?
So, for example, Valley Creek, the watershed district has done an inventory of Valley Creek that, over the last 15 years and then done routine inspections, monitor those sites, prioritize those sites, and then implemented projects to improve sites with willing landowners. There's, I think it's biannually or every 3 years, but it's dependent on the priority. So I think that the main stream itself is a certain time period, and then the gullies that feed into the stream are a different time period.
Yeah, I should say that most of these goals are currently supported by existing actions that you as an organization already do. And we probably want to tailor and reassess the priorities and how much money you're putting towards each one of them as it gets implementation. But so, for example, that goal 4A to understand the condition of stream banks, that priority stream monitoring or assessment program that John just talked about that we do every 3 years, that's directly linked to achieving that goal. That's you wouldn't necessarily be. I mean, we'll assess it when we get there, but there may not be any change required to your implementation program to relative to that goal. That may be sufficient as it is.
Very good.
4C is to understand the condition of shorelines along DBWD priority lakes. That's, right now, I don't think you have a monitoring program where you assess shorelines specifically. I don't know if it's done as part of water quality monitoring or vegetation monitoring, but
Mr. Inspector, we don't have anything like that at this time.
As far as the 4D
4C.
or C,
Again, these are just curiosities.
I don't know that those are in the inventory. I know that we've inventoried, as John mentioned, the streams and they're set according to certain priorities, but I don't know that we've done any shoreline work that I
No. We haven't done any shoreline work. And so
Okay.
what comes to mind there is to do an inventory of Lake Jane, for example, because Lake Jane is listed as impaired for fisheries. And one of the reasons is because of inadequate shoreline for habitat.
Maybe that's something we step up.
And goal 4D is to promote the establishment and maintenance of vegetative buffers through development standards, education, and support of partner activities. Issue 5 is related to aquatic invasive species and specifically related to AIS that impact water quality and ecology. So as aquatic invasive species contribute to phosphorus loading to eutrophication, for example, curlew pondweed, negatively impact ecology and may be exacerbated by climate trends.
Sorry, I'm not just interrupt you quickly. It's 7:35. Should probably just pause the conversation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. We did have that plan. So at this point, I don't need to, do I need to follow through and shut down?
I'll suspend the writing. Public hearing.
Got it. So I'm gonna do that right now. Here's my person, or to correct me if I don't do that properly, but I would like to make a motion to suspend the meeting so that we can have a public meeting. Which are we on? Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. It is official. We are now engaged in a public hearing for our budget. I don't even hear crickets. I won't get in trouble with that.
Mr. President, since the meeting started, Allison Stroll has joined us. Allison is with Washington County, and I believe she's here to hear about engineering item 2, the resolution to adopt the Washington County mitigation plan. But I just wanted to make you aware that there is somebody now online.
Allison, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so I take it you're not interested in our public hearing, and we will discuss that matter as it comes up with what pertains to you. So, and thank you. So without further ado, not hearing anything from the public at this point, we'd like to make a motion to suspend our public hearing and return, close our public hearing and return to our regular meeting. But I have a second.
Second.
The movement second.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. That public hearing is now closed, and we are resuming our regular meeting. Continue, sir. Thank you, Suzanne.
So there are 2 goals related to aquatic invasive species. They're very much tied to partner efforts The first goal is to, I keep mind you, the goals. If you fall short, it's okay, but the goal is to prevent new AIS infestations in priority water bodies through technical support for partner efforts. And should that prevention fail, goal 5B is to maintain or reduce the water quality impact of AIS through technical and financial support.
Yeah, and possible financial support or? Does that have to be?
Don't we provide some funding for inspections?
Right.
Yeah, so that would be, that would be technical and financial support for partner efforts.
I mean, I think the implementation narrative in the plan would be an opportunity to further specify when or why you might financially contribute. So
And I think that's important because it's important for the managers to be clear on whether they would financially support aquatic invasive plant treatments. Currently, the board does not do that, but the board does provide financial assistance to have boats inspected. So that like zebra mussels to try to prevent zebra mussels.
Right, the concern's been historically since I've been on the board that we haven't done that because of the very high costs and also the difficulty with that implementing that control.
And also that past president Bujek's philosophy was by having the lakeshore owners run the programs and work with contractors, they're more invested in it, and it's not some outside agency telling them what to do with their lake.
Yes, that's very good.
So I'm going to flag the financial support equal 5B as just a question mark for now. Yeah, and when we get to implementation, if it turns out that all the financial support is related to, inspection or prevention of new infestations, then leave it at that. Should the actions include financial support for any kind of treatment or other activities that would be more to improving water quality, and those are all the surface water quality goals. And then the second kind of group is related to water quantity, flood risk, and climate resiliency, also flagged as a high priority. And there's really two separate issues here as described. One of them is more related to the existing flooding concerns, and another one related to climate resilience. Issue 6 is that natural and human communities are threatened by periodic flooding under current hydrologic conditions, especially those adjacent to landlocked basins. Like, based on your topography and the recent study, I felt like it was appropriate even in the issue statement to specifically identify landlocked basins. So the goals here are similar to what you're already doing. Identify areas, communities, and water bodies most vulnerable to flood risk under current and anticipated future conditions. Goal 6B is to maintain or increase floodplain storage volume through the application of appropriate standards. Oh, we went with appropriate standards here instead of aggressive. Nice. Through the application of appropriate standards for development and redevelopment. And then goal C is to broadly applicable, reduce the flood risk of habitable structures, critical infrastructure within the floodplain through BBWE-led flood risk reduction projects. For example, capital projects and acquisitions. And this right now, the goal is focused on habitable structures and critical infrastructure.
Yeah. So,
Issue 7 is related to climate resiliency, and it says expected future climate and hydrology trends will challenge the resiliency of infrastructure, ecosystems, and communities, flooding, drought, and extreme conditions. Goal 7A is to assess the impact of anticipated climate trends on priority water bodies, infrastructure, and communities. So that would be something new. I don't think right now you guys have a comprehensive assessment of how those trends might look. Now, some of the earliest actions that could go with that might be, running Atlas 15 precipitation through existing models and just saying, how does that change the floodplain? There are potentially more detailed assessments when you get into how is that going to affect infrastructure, stuff like that. Project 1007.
yeah, what can we do to mitigate that?
Goal 7B is to incorporate climate adaptation functions into all projects and programs. I just want to clarify here that climate adaptation function would be basically the idea here is you think about climate resiliency when you're designing your projects and what can you do to your project to help build in that resiliency. And it may include things like looking at your vegetation mixes and thinking, okay, how is this vegetation going to perform in plus or minus 20% precipitation or plus 5 degrees climate scenarios, things like that. I might be looking at whether or not designs are going to be able to withstand drought or repeated freeze thaw cycles like that.
Greg, is the word all aggressive?
I would argue that there's at least something you could probably do in all of your projects.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's one of those things where if you put in like a wiggle room or wiggle word like as appropriate or things like that, then it's too easy to just be like, nah, we don't have to worry about it for this one. Say shoot for all.
I was just thinking
Yeah.
either leave all or just delete the word all without
just
replacing it.
Yeah. That's just kind of implied that it's all maybe.
Yeah.
Without saying. I'll flag it for now.
Yeah.
These are all draft. None of this is final till you adopt. Goal 7C is to update your development standards to require the incorporation of climate resilient practices. Don't know exactly what the incorporation of climate resilience practices would necessarily look like, but it's a future action. And goal 7D is to increase the use of climate resilient practices among private and public landowners within the watershed. It's kind of it's the optional resident version of goal 7B. 7B is to incorporate climate resiliency into kind of district projects, and 7B is to encourage people to do what they can, either through rain barrels, grid yards, conservation, water reuse, things like that.
Almost redundant. They can be more specific in the actions.
Yeah, they can have a very a diffuse small impact versus maybe a concentrated bigger impact. Those are the draft goals for your high priority issue. Like I said, I know there are 2 managers who are not here tonight. We'll be looking to get their feedback in the future, but I wanted to get the ball rolling, at least get these in front of you. You can think about them. If you have additional comments, please provide them to me. In the meantime, I'm going to be working through the remainder of the issues, and we'll keep chugging along.
You've done a very good job, Greg. Kept us focused because I think this is a lot of work. Spend a lot of time, writing these things down. making comparisons to what other watershed districts do, and also keeping in mind that we're looking towards the future to make our situation better as best we can. So this is really, I appreciate it. I think we all. Very good. All right. Then. Where's the way? Resolution for adopting the Washington County All Hazard Mitigation Plan. Okay. See, I'm looking for it here. No, I had it somewhere. Forgive me. Yeah, look at the go. Yes. I don't see anything that comes to mind that I would question at this point. The managers doing particular, sir. But looks good. And so this requires motion.
Yes.
So I will make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-03, Washington County All Hazard Mitigation Plan. So moved and seconded.
Aye.
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 It is adopted. Thank you.
Allison
Still with us?
is still with us.
Allison's still with us.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary, do I have your permission to add your electronic signature to this and send it to Allison?
Yes, please. Miss Allison, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Oh, thank you. Well, you did okay, right?
It's all good. Yeah.
Perfect.
If you could send me the copy, I send that off to FEMA, and then they're gonna update our document, and you should be good for 5 years. This plan is good until the end of 2028.
Thank you very much, and thank you for attending. John is going to follow up with our electronic signatures. So
Great.
we're on our
Thank
way.
you.
Have a good night.
You too. Thanks.
All right. And we can move on to let's see if I can miss something. The community grant Baytown Hall Rain Garden demonstration project. And that's right here. Okay. Do the managers understand this?
Yes.
Little feedback?
Yeah.
John, could you lead us into this and give us an explanation?
Can probably.
I feel comfortable with this, but go ahead.
Sure. So Baytown Township submitted a community grant application to install a rain garden at that corner of the parking lot. And so this is a figure that Washington Conservation District put together. So we're sitting in A. The parking lot that we park in is here. And then they have this lower parking lot here, and they're proposing looks like a rain garden at a bigger figure.
Pretty good picture in the back.
Yeah, right here. So we're proposing a rain garden here. It's about 500 square feet, and then a swale that would take it down to existing swale in this area. And they're proposing some signage for educational purposes. They apparently were very excited and so started doing a little bit of work before they got approval from Valley Branch Watershed District, and Lori at Washington Conservation District told them to slow down a little bit until the managers have a chance to discuss this. I think it was also maybe discussed at the town board meeting that President Rashan attended when the state was presenting about PFAS. So I don't know much more detail about this other than they're requesting assistance from Valley Branch of $5,000.
Okay, we're going to, I may, this clearly education purposes. I assume that it's also going to be beneficial. Runoff mitigation, et cetera.
This site doesn't drain directly to any water body, but
Right.
it eventually, if all the water would get there, I think it's Cloverdale Lake that it would drain to.
There's only two questions I have, and I don't know if we need to talk to them about this or just make it happen. But that relates to maintenance. How often are they going to maintain it? Is it annual, and for how long? And another curiosity, some of the plants they're putting in, I don't know if they're going to put in annuals. I assume they're going to bring in perennials. And if they do, I like all those wonderful little labels. Are they actually going to label those things? Because I think that's very educational and very useful. And again, plants that benefit wildlife, pollinators and things of that nature, not necessarily turning into a giant deer feeding station.
Yeah, Mr. President, the planting plan is included in the packet, and
Right.
I think it is a pollinator mix.
Yeah.
You can see butterfly weed, little blue stem, prairie phlox, drop seed. They do have all these community grants do have a requirement for maintenance, and that's also included in the packet. Let's see if I can find it.
They say these things so that they understand
Yeah, so on the
that this is something that we're aware of.
Yep. So,
Yep.
this, I don't know which page it is in the packet, but it has a number 2 at the bottom. It starts with some of the operation and maintenance of that they'd be required to do after storm events, and at least annually do some work. And I think overall they're usually 10 years, but I don't know if somebody has found it.
Right, there's a statement, which page 5 in the packet, and it says that they agree to maintain it 10 years.
Oh, right here, 10 years. Yeah.
I just like to think that when we hand somebody a check, we go, by the way, did you ever turn off the lights or whatever? That's what I'm getting. But I get it. Listen,
Assuming we provide them some funding, I would request that we do the same thing like we did at the county fairgrounds and ask that the signage acknowledge financial assistance from Valley Grant Clause in this report.
that's brilliant. Yes, sir. Yeah, I certainly overlooked that. I guess I was under the assumption that our name would be dropped, but yeah, it'd be nice to have some signage. I'm sure. So is this do you have anything? Bill, by chance?
No, sounds like your project.
Yes.
My only question, I guess, is how does this fit with our budget and our accounts for the year?
That's a good question, Manager Brock. I asked the same question. I think we're okay with the allotment or that the Watershed District has with Washington Conservation District. It's a little bit hard to tell by the treasurer's report because this is how much has actually been funded, not how much has been allocated. But let's see if I can find the treasurer's report here.
45,000 total that we're giving them and doing it through them. Right?
Yeah, so the manager's fund, it's a $55,000 programs for implementation, and then it's $45,000 for the technical assistant administration through Washington Conservation District. So I did ask Washington Conservation Districts, like, wow, we've been approving a lot of projects. Are we okay with funding? And I don't. Alyssa, the main contact, was out sick, so I haven't got a response yet. But I think we're okay.
Or do we need to allocate funds? I don't see any problems.
Yeah, so far, what's been expended through the end of August was $13,000.
toward the 55.
So this requires a motion. Would any gentleman like to make a motion? Or- Go ahead. Bill.
Make a motion to approve the $5,000 community grant for the Baytown Town Hall Rain Garden Demonstration Project.
With the condition.
With the condition that Valley Ranch Watershed District is mentioned as funder on the signage.
Excellent. I will second that motion.
Aye.
Aye. That is approved. Okay, so we will have to get them a check.
They need to submit receipts first.
What's that?
They'll submit receipts and then.
Oh, very good. Okay. Sure. Thank you, John. Donna, you're up to bat.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am. Okay, what's going on?
well, so you've got the memo.
Yep.
Really, I just wanted to give you an outline. I don't have an update from the memo that I sent, so just more. Make the managers aware of the situation and what's been done and what the current request is. I did ask Jeff if he had an update. Think it's okay.
So I went out to the house on the cemetery today. There was no one there, but the site is not finished. And I showed a couple of managers some pictures I took before the meeting started, but basically the site grading's not complete, the vegetation's not complete, the two infiltration basins don't function, and the landscaping's not complete. So it's, I don't know, I hate to put a percentage of completion on it. I'm not knowing what that total vision is, but you know, the infrastructure, the stormwater systems are in place, although the infiltration basins don't work. So the main functions that we're concerned about are in place, but nothing else is complete on it. So as a matter of just a regular course of business, I'd say, well, this project's not complete. So we need to continue on. I don't know. I haven't been able to contact Mr. Rosa to ask him what timelines, what the plan is to finish. But certainly, and I asked Engineer Hansen, mentioned to me that the city of Lake Alma has not closed out their permit yet. And I believe we have a joint maintenance agreement with the, is that not that?
That's actually what I was, I've forgotten that until you started talking.
Okay, so you could address that first.
So I looked at the property records to see what's been recorded, just to confirm that there's nothing Valley Branch, and there isn't. But there is a maintenance agreement with the city, and that maintenance agreement is very similar to what Valley Branch would have. The difference, the city has authority to, and you know, to take action on it. It does include a provision that annual reports are supposed to be provided to the city. So engineer sent an email and CC'd me on that email. He said, have you had any annual reports? And the response came back. So really, I mean, I guess I'll say my recommendation is just to notify the bank that the LOC is still required, see what their response is. And then I can come back at the next meeting, because I think I will be here at the next meeting. Or if Lauren's here, that's fine too, but, and just let you know how the bank is responding. And I mean, if they say that there is no more LLC, I don't know that the district has a really strong basis to push too hard on the bank itself. I think the pressure is gonna come on the property owner to say, okay, well, I want the bank to do it, so who are you gonna do it with? Right? And hopefully the city would be more proactive, because frankly, they've got better teeth than the district. So it's
Right.
not that the district can't put pressure on, but as far as taking some kind of action, frankly, I think the city's in a better position, but
Good.
I can just give you another update at the next meeting.
I suppose, yeah. Certainly, I agree with you, your expertise. It's $26,000, so it doesn't seem like it's that big a deal. I don't have $26,000, but my concern was just the risk. But you're essentially going to update us on this ongoing situation. By the way, I drive on that road on occasion, at Lake Elmo, and you could see it from the road. And I've made macabre jokes in the past about the deceased having to float away and all this sort of stuff. And I'm not disrespecting anybody, but I wonder about all that stuff, how they're handling it. Anyway,
The vaults are on the high ground.
oh, good. Okay, yeah, I did see that. And I don't know if they're planning on erecting mausoleums or whatever the case, though. I don't know. Sorry. So please keep us abreast of these developments, and I don't think we need to do anything at this point. Is that correct?
Yeah, just making you aware, and if there were any questions, feel them. Just something that's sort of been moving along, and then this letter brought it to a head, and so like, please.
At the very least, we're not seeing flooding or anything that needs to come to our attention regarding our involvement.
They need to make sure that the infiltration basins function as designed and approved, okay, a permit. And I'm not sure if we have a drainage easement, if that's being reported. So we have some open items there. If they say, well, this project's complete, it still doesn't meet our requirements of functioning to the rules. So we've got some things to do that. I mean, it's there.
All right, very good, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Savannah.
Did you want to discuss this email with signage property owner?
We were going to do that under managers and
Sorry.
if that's okay. That's okay. That's coming up because it ties into the letter we also received. I want to say Malkovich, but that's okay. John Malkovich. Mr. Inspector.
Marshawn Rangers in your packet was a report. And an update on a couple of my problem sites, I think, that I'm up to date on.
Yes.
There was the Lansing residents in West Lakeland Township. I've been working with the building inspector from West Lakeland Township. On repairing their erosion control, sweeping the street. They did repair the erosion control. They sort of swept the stream. They haven't done some catch basin traps. Giving a little more time on that, they almost had a stop work order put on the place, but they said they would take care of it. But was that to a Thompson resident in West Lakeland is one that we've had multiple issues of the erosion blowouts into the wetland. In fact, the Wetland Conservation Act involved team involved in inspecting the site. Last Friday was on Monday, the West Lakeland Township building inspector put a stop work order on the premises right while they're doing finish work. So as it turns out, then by today, everything has been repaired and brought up to accept what I call it acceptable. So we just had a struggle getting the contractor to respond and to get their subs out there to fix these issues. And the nice thing about working with the building inspector is that they have real teeth. They can put a stop work order on the premises. And now this is costing them money because the subs can't go in there and work. I stopped there today and I saw somebody was inside and I went inside. I said, "Oh, what are you doing in here?" He happened to be working for the contractor. He was the builder of the building space. So we walked through and said, "Great." We walked through and I asked him if he was out and the work was done and I documented it. So everything's acceptable. they should be back in business tomorrow. But, that was nice because those sites could be so frustrating when you just don't get a response, and chasing through the DNR and other things can just take so much time. In the meantime, erosion continues and continues. So far, you know, until the next big rainfall, we're good. There was knuckle down on the Neal Avenue and Fourth, that culvert work. They have finished the culvert and stabilized the banks. They're planning on temporarily patching the road. The problem they ran into when I was talking to the county last week is that last section of the culvert system that's on the west side of Neal is in the water. Because our storage is so high right now.
Right.
And so I met out there, we talked about it. They said basically, guys, you can't de-water this because the water is coming in all the time to our system. There's not much you can do. So what they decided to do is take it as far as they can. They have one section left. Certainly start over. One section left to install on the west side. They're gonna wait till the water goes down, and then they'll come back and finish it. But they want to finish, at least patch the road so they can open the road. Because it's a main, it's, you know, it's a main road.
Yeah.
Especially with all the, you know, other work going on in the area. So anyway, that's moving ahead. I think that was a good outcome. I think John and I both have talked to each other the last week or so about Goose Lake levels are coming up, and on the north side, it's kind of lapping up towards the shoulder. We haven't had any significant rain since that really big storm. So I guess we'll just kind of see where it's at, but it's not threatening the road yet. So I guess we'll continue to watch it. The county watches it. I'm not sure, I didn't notice the lake gauge today, the last time I saw it was underwater.
Where is the lake game?
It's down on the south side of 10th Street towards Eats. And I know Aaron is aware of it, so I'm sure he's got a plan to probably relocate it or something. Keeps an eye on those for us, so I'm sure that needs to be adjusted.
I have a question. The fountain on the, which is the north segment of Goose Lake, is that that's not the county, that's private?
The HOA.
What's the HOA? Okay.
So those are the just a couple of quick updates. If you have questions on any other areas, and have. That's right.
Did the manager say anything?
One question just for information. So I got that under the everything. I'm not familiar with the term boneyard.
Okay. So at the Dairy Queen site, so when they're staging equipment, when they're staging dumpsters and equipment and stockpiles, and they have an area they kind of designate as a kind of where they store it. We kind of call it. Probably shouldn't use that term, but it's kind of, it's what they do. They put all their stuff there. Well, when they're done with the project, they're supposed to restore it and clean it up. Well, they want to close out the project, but it's right on the boulevard of Hudson. And it's like, well, you've got a big dumpster sitting here. No grass is growing. It's like the project is 98% done and they haven't cleaned up that area. So I see we've got to clean it up. So that's kind of what's going on, is that they just didn't finish it. It's kind of the same on the Dundalk Green in Woodbury's housing development. I received a report today from the city of Woodbury on their inspection. So everything is done on the site, stabilized. They have silt fence to remove. They've got all this done, but they've got the same kind of thing on the north side of the site. They've got an area where they did all their staging, and that's not done. And if you don't call them out on it, they'll just kind of walk away and it won't get done. So I talked to the developer about that, said, hey, I'm trying to close your permit out. And, you know, get to the surety return. You guys want to address this, and he was really responsive. Because it's costing them money to have that by the federal. So he was mentioning too, he developed Stansel Hill. And I don't think they're quite ready on that one, but I know they have to go into Spencer Hill and rework some basins there, but he was motivated to get that done too, so hopefully we'll move to closing some of these. I've been looking at a number of other open permits. Josh Phillips has been going through and pulling up permits to review, and I've been looking at some that I know that we can try to get closed out and
That's one. Anything else, gentlemen? Under managers, I have something with over know how to do that. We'll get to that shortly. Thank you, Mr. Inspector. Very good. Okay, I have a quick question before we move on. The resolution 2024-02, resolution approving the preliminary 2025 tax levy. We oh, never mind. There it is. Okay. Okay, well, then we're gonna need your help on this one. Let's immediately go to this situation for Mr. Savinik. Are the managers aware of what's happening here? I know staff is, engineer, and of course Susanna now. Lauren was emailed him. And so this is what's happening. I don't know what caused this. We have rules and regs, and as evidenced by Mr. Malkowski and his wife, who sent us a glowing letter about our behavior and how we're handling this situation over in Matamidi. I think that we handled Mr. Savinik's situation well, and I heard stories, but the reason that this came up was because of what I read, and that was that this is some sort of a money grab. And I'm not suggesting that he said anything wrong. I'm just saying that when I hear stuff like that, we are not engaged in a money grab. We are a legitimate government unit, and we want to do the best thing for our constituents. And the watershed district, people have to conform. But it seems to me, I'm not the expert here, but it seems to me that what they have created on their property, one way or another, conforms to some extent, conforms to what our requirements are. So the question is, does he get a free pass? Does he get a variance? Excuse me. Does he need to go through something so that we can return his surety? If I was in his position, I would certainly want my surety returned if I complied with the watershed district's requirements. So the question here is he doing it? Now, I know you did some further research on this matter. I would certainly like to make him happy, but again, this is important for all of us. And so I did mention to him that I would do what I could, but I didn't promise anything. So I told him that I had to consult with the managers and with our attorney and everybody to make sure that this is being handled the right way. So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to you, Mr. Engineer, so you could tell us where he stands and if things are going well.
Mr. President, managers, I distributed a memo before the meeting that had some bullet points. I sent that via email earlier today.
Yeah.
As President Marchand said, while he didn't construct a rain garden, because almost all of the impervious surface drains to vegetated areas, using the PCA's MIDS calculator and the disconnected impervious surface BMP, it appears that he's controlling his runoff volume before it would leave his site. close to what the Valley Branch Watershed District would require. If he had only constructed the impervious surface that he said he was going to construct when Valley Branch issued the permit, I think he would conform to the rule. He constructed about 40% more than he said he was going to. And so it's a little bit less clear if he does or doesn't meet the rule. The other issue is because he's using green space, if he is using green space to meet the Valley Branch Watershed District's rule, the Watershed District has said that needs to be either in a drainage easement or the managers have used a declaration of green space in certain situations as a alternative. He has not done that. There's also a low area adjacent to Inwood Avenue. Valley Branch Watershed District requires drainage easements up to the 100-year flood elevations of all low areas. I know Secretary Brock has said in some situations, maybe the manager should waive that requirement because the project isn't really affecting that low area, or that low area was there before the project. So in my opinion, the project probably conforms to the Watershed District's volume control rule. So the outstanding issue is preserving the green space in some mechanism, either a drainage easement or this declaration of covenants, or not require that. But since it is a standard requirement, I think the managers would have to agree to a variance if they're not going to require that. And then also probably a variance over not requiring an easement up to the 100-year flood elevation of this low area. So included in the packet is the variance worksheet that Attorney Torseth developed earlier this year.
Right.
Well, for the sake of precedent, it's a variance even at this point, post-project. That is my understanding. It's something that we agreed to do. It's a condition of the permit. Didn't do it. At one time told our inspector that we can have the money. I understand that I didn't do what I was supposed to do under the permit. And now they're coming back and asking for a variance. At this point, I don't even see why we necessarily do that.
My understanding is that he is not asking for a variance. He is not. He brought this up, and I'm essentially acting as a liaison, so to speak, to square the situation away because I was concerned about his comments about how we handled this. And one valid point he made was that we handled this on a case-by-case basis, and I thought we did. And so based on that, I haven't been on the property, of course, but he claims that he's put in a lot of large trees and things. So if all of these things mitigate runoff or supplant a need for a rain garden, then does that put him in the clear, so to speak? That's all I was getting. Sure. But you're right. Yeah, there's things that weren't done, and we need to make sure that that's established. Another thing that I'm concerned about is if this all goes through, does he also need to sign an easement? An easement agreement? Is that necessary?
So,
Please do.
what my advice always is that every permit applicant, permit holder is treated the same by the watershed,
Right.
right? So the managers are not sua sponte or spontaneously deciding to apply rules or not apply rules, right? So the rules require maintenance agreements, which was premised on a rain garden, and the easement requirement. And so therefore, I think if the property owner wanted to basically take this and indicate in a variance, like, this isn't a variance application that the manager should consider. But essentially the argument is, I don't need to follow the rules because I've done this, we've planted trees. I think for the managers to properly consider an argument like that, it should come in the form of a variance application, which he hasn't submitted. I don't even know if it's been mentioned to him, that would be an option. But I don't think it's appropriate for the managers to spontaneously say this applies or this doesn't apply. Because any other permit holder would need to come to the district and show the engineer and say, here's our plan to meet your stormwater goal. You know, here's our plan to meet this. So it's not that the information couldn't result in the request he's asking for. It's just that it hasn't been presented in a way that I think the managers could decide to do anything different with it.
Okay, that's right. I completely agree with that. We don't have, yes, sir.
Comment. John mentioned, I'm the guy that brings up the questions on the easement sometimes.
Right.
On this particular one though,
Yeah.
If, assuming he submits a variance request and we go with it for the green infiltration area versus the rain garden, and in my mind, that green infiltration area would be a BMP. And so then we should require that easement or whatever, green space easement, is that what we call that? To maintain that, so he doesn't pave over that and, you know, out there and,
Okay,
I mean, that's just.
No. I understand. We're getting this squared away. Mr. Broward, do you have a comment or?
Well, I was just going to say that I agree with Engineer Hanson that I think looking at the site and the things that have been done, it certainly would meet our requirements. The problem is communication. There was never communication up front, never talk about a variance or I'm not going to do this. He accepted our permit, so that's why I went there based on our standard, our rule.
Right.
Some communication along the way to say, you know, this isn't working for me, and we address this some other way. We could have looked at that and said, well, we want to make an addendum here to the permit to change it from a rain garden to a green. So there was none of that discussion up front. So I never even received notice that the project started. I never received notice that the project ended. And so just my only comment is there was a lack of communication from their side to talk about this at all. And so I'm not trying to influence your decision one way.
No.
But just to set the stage, there was no communication about any of this until I went to close it.
It's just the truth. This is just the fact. I'm trying to be careful with my words, disgruntled, whatever. We're just trying to rectify something.
Yeah.
That's all, if that exists. And so now, with all these things presented, turning towards you, John, the managers. So here's where it gets interesting. One time I saw this thing where one of those Aesop's fables where some mice were having a big meeting about what to do about the cat that was introduced to the house. And one young mouse stands up and says, I know, we'll put a bell on the cat. And a wise old mouse stands up and says, who's going to put the bell on the cat? So with that said, I turn this over to you and ask him to follow through with the variance and see what he says, or you want me to talk to him and tell him specifically what he needs to do to make it so that he gets his surety back, because I believe that's his goal.
Well, would the managers approve a variance if one was applied? Because I'm not clear that the managers would approve a variance in this situation. So it doesn't make sense to make them jump through more hoops if the managers are not going to approve a variance.
I didn't find out.
Okay. Not you, sir?
If what he has there would meet our standards or very close to it, I would be inclined to go along with it, but with the requirement that we lock down that green space with a need.
So he doesn't need a variance in order to change from a rain garden to this green space.
Yeah.
The variance, so I think the first step would be saying, okay, you're fine, but you need to you need to give us an easement or work with the legal counsel to do a, what's it called, a declaration of green space on that.
Was that gonna cost it in the trans?
No, because Mr. Secretary, the permit said they need to do, it's the fourth bullet on page 1 of my memo that says you need to do a rainwater garden or equivalent BMP.
So he may not need a variance at all. And you're right. Farm to what we all do. So,
But that permit, then it does say that they would grant easements over any BMPs.
Yeah.
or anything.
So he would need to either grant that or request a variance. And what I'm hearing from the board is that the board would not approve a variance to not require the easement or declaration of green space. So in order to get his money back, he has to give the Watershed District that legal document.
Yeah, and I don't know. Something about that option.
this is the kid gloves thing, helping everybody out. I'm not an advocate for anybody in particular. This is, watershed wide. We don't need enemies, blah, blah, blah. You know where this is going. And so to provide the best, case, satisfaction for him, we're doing what we can to rectify whatever it is that he believes he is being shortchanged on, that he's not receiving his money. So it's not a variance, and would you like to contact him and explain the situation to him? I don't expect any hostilities. That would be his problem. But he seemed like, I spoke to him, he's a very reasonable man. He's retired, and he told me that he worked in upper management or something or other. I don't recall, but it was a very friendly conversation. And so we can go through you, explain what he has to do, jump through hoops, whatever it is, and possibly contact our attorney in this matter. And that's it. Does that seem reasonable to everyone? Does it do? Can I direct you, or does this require a motion? Okay, thank you.
I'll do that.
Thank you, John, and we'll see what happens. Okay, and hopefully this will work out, but we want this to be good for everybody. Again, I think I can't stress this enough. You know, that one movie, There's No Crying in Baseball, except for when I blubbered. No, we're not supposed to have any crying in the Valley Branch Watershed District. We're not supposed to have any, you know, yeah. And you gentlemen did your part. You know, I was just making sure that, you know, because we get the impression that if somebody slams a door in your face, you don't want to cooperate, well then, too bad for you. We're not being the bad guys here, and I'm not suggesting he was. But the lack of communication has to change.
That was key, I think.
Yeah.
The whole thing didn't have to be here.
And he could listen to this, and anybody could see what I'm bringing up here.
I did send him a permit letter. So the permit was issued March of 2022. I have a correspondence I sent that just highlights, and then I sent drafts of the maintenance agreement and easement. That was sent to me April of 2022. So didn't have some awareness that not only was it a permit, but then follow-up correspondence from the those documents.
Yeah.
And he personally submitted the permit application for a lot of these individual homes. It's their contractor that submits the information, but in this situation, he submitted.
So at this point, please talk to him, please keep me abreast of things. And, you have to, play by our rules. Everybody does. All I have on that, but thank you, everybody, for, helping with this situation. Can't say any more about it. All right. That's all squared away at this point. And now we move on to the resolution of 2024-02, approving the preliminary 2025 tax levy. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2024-02, a resolution approving the preliminary 2025 tax levy.
Second.
So moved and seconded.
Aye.
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 It is approved. And, we need electronic signatures or do you need?
If you give me permission, I'll use electronic signatures.
Yeah, my permission and blessing. So that matter has been resolved. And there's no further requirement on that, Susanna, right? You're good?
I just have one brief item under managers, just information Engineer Hanson and I with some Lakeland Township folks today to look at a basin that is adjacent to fighting we're out there. And it was just a very brief meeting and they're handling, it's not our basin or our, but Scott did a good job coordinating based on comments from this person who was my neighbor. Don did a good job of coordinating with the West Lakeland folks and getting them out there to look at it. And they're going to do some maintenance. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that case and
Thank you, sir.
heard about that later.
Another feather in your cap. You got one.
I need the date.
Mr. Musburger there?
Yeah.
Musburger? Yeah, okay. Good. And Dave Schultz, did with them? Okay. He's basically done with all that. Okay. And then, of course, this letter from Mr. Malkowski. You know, I got some goosebumps. I felt good. You know, I'm sure everybody else does. This isn't about me or I appreciate how John's handling this. This is about all of us. And this is important. And with that said, I was hoping that we could help the Mr. Simonik situation make things better. And that's what we strive for. That's all I have. Okay. Future business and meetings. John, you're not going to be attending our September 26th meeting, right?
Yeah.
You will.
I will not be here for, unfortunately, September 26th or October 2.
Ouch.
I'm gonna be in Montana and I'm gonna be in work, so. But I will be there October 1st for the tour.
Yeah, is it October 2nd we're doing?
Oh, I think it is October 2nd. It's supposed to be a Tuesdays, but
Yeah. More or less decided, Vice President Ferrera had mentioned that, we could finish our tour at his home and, with chicken wings or whatever, but I just think that with, the itinerary that we have and, some of the items we're gonna look at, which I think are more obscure than, last night, you know, some things are obvious. I want to look at the weird stuff. And we don't necessarily have to get out on our waders or anything. And then we're going to finish it.
at establishments in the district or near the district at
Yes,
least.
sir.
I think the date is right. I think it is October 1st because that is a Tuesday. And the timing hasn't been determined, but it's usually 4:30-ish to 8 till dark.
Hopefully not. For our, we will be attending.
Oh, yeah.
And I think if the attorneys want to attend, by all means, be careful. I don't know about Lauren, because
Lauren may not.
she's a baby now.
We, have an associate, almost, take the bar exam, but we're waiting for her to see if she passes, but she will likely be learning about Valley Branch and then sharing meetings with me eventually, so I'll organize some meetings and introduce you to her.
Are you guys like a firm? It's that movie.
Not that.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. Yeah. Here, they build you the wrong hours. So yes, please attend. That would be very kind. And then John is going to provide us with another fancy van. But expensive, it's supposed to be certain stuff. So, okay. So back to our October 2. Budget workshop with Washington County Board of Commissioners, November 12th. I will more than likely be attending that. And I suppose if any of the other managers want to attend to getting some understanding, if you like, you're more than welcome to. But I'll be there with John.
What time is that?
That's usually in the morning, right? Or they're gonna let us know.
Okay, it kind of depends on their
Sit around a big table. You bring up some pertinent things. And by that time, we're gonna know the situation about the new commissioner that's going to be replacing Commissioner Priest. This is his last term, I believe, so. We'll see how that goes. That's all we have at this time. Okay, very good, everybody. Thank you for all your efforts. One more item. Motion to adjourn. The move and second.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. For adjourn. That's it. Thank you.